plan, in my opinion, that will be in place when the New World Order commences. Mr. Green Jeans, as I call him. But anyway, this was taken from the New York Times magazine, and he's got a funny little posture here. He's got his kind of like Napoleon. Well, what that's called is the god of the gut. And again, it's an old Egyptian symbol of deity. And this guy is going to be, in my opinion, one of the deities. He's going to be a major player in the New World Order. So what does the national security establishment see as precipitating this calamity, this massive calamity? Well, obviously we have nuclear war as a possibility. Think there's ever going to be peace in the Middle East? I doubt it. Not the way Arafat's talking. You know, one day he's saying, oh, well, you know, peace is at hand, and the next day, there's no way. It's not going to work. Not going to work. If the Israelis are attacked, they have more or less said that they will use their Samson option, which is to launch over 200 nuclear missiles that they have in the Negev Desert near Dimona. And when that happens, folks, it's going to be all over. If you think the UPS strike is impacting your life, wait till a nuclear war breaks out there. We also have North and South Korea. Japan is a possible collateral target. If they take Japan out, we're in trouble, because most of our chips, if you look at your car, almost all the chips in there, everything with chips is either Hitachi or Mitsumi or something from Japan. We have India and Pakistan. Most people don't know that they have had several close brushes with nuclear confrontation. China and Russia are a possibility. China and the United States. China, Russia, and the United States, you know, whatever way you want to permutate it. And of course, Iran, Iraq, and Libya are all known to have at least some nuclear weapons of some type. The second scenario is probably going to surprise you, because this is something that's fairly recent that's come up. There's a real concern that we may be, or we will be, it's not we may be, we will be eventually hit by a comet or asteroid sufficient to impact our lives significantly. Now, we have had in the past 4 years 3 major cometary events. We had Shoemaker-Levy, the one that crashed into Jupiter. We had Hyakutake, and we had Hale-Bopp. We've also discovered that we are literally in a swarm right now, and this swarm is getting bigger and bigger. It's called the Leonid meteor swarm. That is the leftovers from a comet called Temple-Tuttle. And we're coming into this thing, and by 1999 we're going to be right in the middle of it. And if one of these things hits of any major size, it's going to cause global catastrophe and destruction. One of these things, less than the size of this room here, would equal all of the nuclear warheads being detonated at one time. We've had a lot of near misses. Last year we had one that came within 275,000 miles of Earth. That's pretty close. It basically skipped over the atmosphere and went out. Had it hit, we might not be sitting here talking, or if we were, we might be underwater talking. And they don't even have to hit. That's the worst part about it. If they just pass through the atmosphere, you can get a chemical reaction that generates something called hydrocyanic acid. And basically this gets into the hydrological cycle, the rain cycle. And hydrocyanic acid has some interesting properties. Basically it's a colorless, and it's water soluble, which means it mixes with water very readily. So if If it got into the rain clouds, it would come down and actually get into our water supplies. But it's extremely poisonous, and it's called an aromatic acid, and it's very bitter. Coincidentally, wormwood was an aromatic herb of the sunflower family. Oil of wormwood has a bitter taste. How many people have read Revelation 7:8? All of you have. Talks about the giant mountain, fiery mountain from the heavens that turns a third part of the waters bitter, blots out the sun. I'm just paraphrasing. Blots out the sun. We know now that when one of these things hits, the first thing that happens is the fragments from these asteroids blow out into the atmosphere. Big chunks of just hot metal blow out. There's also a verse, I can't remember which one it was, but it talks about hailstones the size of talons coming down. This is very descriptive of what would happen if a meteor hit. Now, these aren't uncommon events. The last one we had, major one, was 1908, which was in Tunguska, Siberia. They also believe the fire of 1873 Chicago fire was caused by a meteor hit now. It wasn't Mrs. O'Leary's cow that knocked over a kerosene lamp. So that's definitely something to be concerned about. I have a friend at the U.S. Space Command, and he said they are extremely concerned about it. This is a visualization of what would happen if it hit in the water, in the ocean. It would be no better. We'd have a tidal wave at least 800 feet high. Basically, you'd have obliteration of Australia, Indonesia, Japan, the West Coast, South America. If it hit in the Atlantic, same scenario. Let's look at some other possibilities. Right now, there's been a lot of talk about plagues, rogue viruses, all these strange illnesses. First of all, this is something you definitely don't want to get. This little critter here is called Ebola. And it's probably one of the worst ways you can die, because basically it just disintegrates your circulatory system and you just, what they call, bleed out. Now, this was reported 2 years ago in Kinshasa, in Zaire. The World Health Organization immediately went in. The first thing that they did was they deputized all health workers and gave them police power. So they could go in and quarantine, arrest people, take them away. There was also a movie recently called Outbreak, which showed the black helicopters coming in, and they were going to sterilize this town with a project called Operation Clean Sweep. Well, we happened to find out that that is the name of the operation. It was a very well done movie as far as its technical expertise, what I call fiction based on fact. But we've heard a lot about these things like Ebola, hantavirus, out in the southwest United States, Rift Valley fever, dengue fever, chronic fatigue syndrome. That's what I feel like I have right now. Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, Gulf War syndrome, anthrax, flesh-eating bacteria, super plagues, the list goes on. Can it get any worse? Well, unfortunately it can. We can have geological disasters. We've seen what happened in Northridge. We've seen what happened in Kobe in Japan. The ring of fire that runs around the Pacific Rim is very, very active. Of course, we have San Andreas Fault, California, the New Madrid Fault in the Missouri Valley, which are both still active. Volcanoes in the United States, Mount St. Helens. Of course, around the world, it's like almost every day now. Pinatubo, Montserrat, El Chicon, just list goes on and on. Abnormal weather. We've had floods, extreme flooding, droughts, extreme temperature variation.